Chapter XLI. Valency looked dully about her old room. It, too, was so exactly the same that it seemed almost impossible to believe in the changes that had come to her since she had last slept in it. It seemed somehow indecent that it should be so much the same. There was Queen Louise everlastingly coming down the stairway, and nobody had let the forlorn puppy in out of the rain. Here was the purple paper blind and the greenish mirror. Outside, the old carriage shop with its blatant advertisements. Beyond it, the station with the same derelicts and flirtatious flappers. Here the old life waited for her, like some grim ogre that bided his time and licked his chops. A monstrous horror of it suddenly possessed her. When night fell and she had undressed and got into bed, the merciful numbness passed away, and she lay in anguish and thought of her island under the stars. The campfires, all their little household jokes and phrases and catchwords, their furry, beautiful cats, the lights agleam on the fairy islands, canoes skimming over Mistawas in the magic of morning, white birches shining among the dark spruces like beautiful women's bodies, winter snows and rose-red sunset fires, lakes drunken with moonshine, all the delights of her lost paradise. She would not let herself think of Barney, only of these lesser things. She could not endure to think of Barney. And she thought of him inescapably. She ached for him. She wanted his arms around her, his face against hers, his whispers in her ear. She recalled all his friendly looks and quips and jests, his little compliments, his caresses. She counted them all over as a woman might count her jewels. Not one did she miss from the first day they had met. These memories were all she could have now. She shut her eyes and prayed. Let me remember everyone, God. Let me never forget one of them. Yet it would be better to forget. This agony of longing and loneliness would not be so terrible if one could forget. And Ethel Traverse, that shimmering witch woman with her white skin and black eyes and shining hair, the woman Barney had loved, the woman whom he still loved. Hadn't he told her he never changed his mind? Who was waiting for him in Montreal? Who was the right wife for a rich and famous man? Barney would marry her, of course, when he got his divorce. How Valency hated her and envied her. Barney had said, "I love you," to her. Valency had wondered what tone Barney would say "I love you" in, how his dark blue eyes would look when he said it. Ethel Traverse knew. Valency hated her for the knowledge, hated and envied her. She can never have those hours in the Blue Castle. They are mine, thought Valency savagely. Ethel would never make strawberry jam or dance to old Abel's fiddle or fry bacon for Barney over a campfire. She would never come to the little Mistawas shack at all.
What was Barney doing, thinking, feeling now? Had he come home and found her letter? Was he still angry with her, or a little pitiful? Was he lying on their bed, looking out on stormy Mistawas and listening to the rain streaming down on the roof? Or was he still wandering in the wilderness, raging at the predicament in which he found himself? Hating her? Pain took her and wrung her like some great pitiless giant. She got up and walked the floor. Would morning never come to end this hideous night? And yet, what could morning bring her? The old life without the old stagnation that was at least bearable. The old life with the new memories, the new longings, the new anguish. Oh, why can't I die? Moaned Valency. Chapter 42. It was not until early afternoon the next day that a dreadful old car clanked up Elm Street and stopped in front of the brick house. A hatless man sprang from it and rushed up the steps. The bell was rung as it had never been rung before, vehemently, intensely. The ringer was demanding entrance, not asking it. Uncle Benjamin chuckled as he hurried to the door. Uncle Benjamin had just dropped in to inquire how dear Doss Valency was. Dear Doss Valency, he had been informed, was just the same. She had come down for breakfast, which she didn't eat, gone back to her room, come down for dinner, which she didn't eat, gone back to her room. That was all. She had not talked, and she had been let, kindly, considerately, alone. Very good. Redfern will be here today, said Uncle Benjamin. And now Uncle Benjamin's reputation as a prophet was made. Redfern was here, unmistakably so. Is my wife here? He demanded of Uncle Benjamin without preface. Uncle Benjamin smiled expressively. Mr. Redfern, I believe? Very glad to meet you, sir. Yes, that naughty little girl of yours is here. We have been... I must see her. Barney cut Uncle Benjamin ruthlessly short. Certainly, Mr. Redfern, just step in here. Valency will be down in a minute. He ushered Barney into the parlor and betook himself to the sitting room and Mrs. Frederick. Go up and tell Valency to come down. Her husband is here." But so dubious was Uncle Benjamin as to whether Valency could really come down in a minute, or at all, that he followed Mrs. Frederick on tiptoe up the stairs and listened in the hall. "Valency, dear," said Mrs. Frederick tenderly, "your husband is in the parlor, asking for you." "Oh, Mother," Valency got up from the window and wrung her hands. "I cannot see him. I cannot. Tell him to go away. Ask him to go away. I can't see him." "Tell her," hissed Uncle Benjamin through the keyhole, "that Redfern says he won't go away until he has seen her." Redfern had not said anything of the kind, but Uncle Benjamin thought he was that sort of a fellow. Valency knew he was. She understood that she might as well go down first as last.
She did not even look at Uncle Benjamin as she passed him on the landing. Uncle Benjamin did not mind. Rubbing his hands and chuckling, he retreated to the kitchen, where he genially demanded of Cousin Stickles, "Why are good husbands like bread?" Cousin Stickles asked why. "Because women need them," beamed Uncle Benjamin. Valency was looking anything but beautiful when she entered the parlor. Her white night had played fearful havoc with her face. She wore an ugly old brown and blue gingham, having left all her pretty dresses in the Blue Castle. But Barney dashed across the room and caught her in his arms. "Valency, darling, oh, you darling little idiot, whatever possessed you to run away like that? When I came home last night and found your letter, I went quite mad. It was 12 o'clock. I knew it was too late to come here then. I walked the floor all night. Then, this morning, Dad came. I couldn't get away till now. Valency, whatever got into you? Divorce, forsooth. Don't you know?" "I know you only married me out of pity," said Valency, brushing him away feebly. "I know you don't love me. I know." "You've been lying awake at 3 o'clock too long," said Barney, shaking her. "That's all that's the matter with you. Love you? Oh, don't I love you. My girl, when I saw that train coming down on you, I knew whether I loved you or not." "Oh, I was afraid you would try to make me think you cared," cried Valency passionately. Don't. I know all about Ethel Travers. Your father told me everything. Oh, Barney, don't torture me. I can never go back to you." Barney released her and looked at her for a moment. Something in her pallid, resolute face spoke more convincingly than words of her determination. "Valency," he said quietly, "Father couldn't have told you everything because he didn't know it. Will you let me tell you everything?" "Yes," said Valency wearily. Oh, how dear he was! How she longed to throw herself into his arms! As he put her gently down in a chair, she could have kissed the slender brown hands that touched her arms. She could not look up as he stood before her. She dared not meet his eyes. For his sake, she must be brave. She knew him, kind, unselfish. Of course he would pretend he did not want his freedom. She might have known he would pretend that, once the first shock of realization was over. He was so sorry for her. He understood her terrible position. When had he ever failed to understand? But she would never accept his sacrifice. Never. "You've seen Dad, and you know I'm Bernard Redford, and I suppose you've guessed that I'm John Foster, since you went into Bluebeard's chamber." "Yes, but I didn't go in out of curiosity. I forgot you had told me not to go in. I forgot."
"Never mind. I'm not going to kill you and hang you up on the wall, so there's no need to call for Sister Anne. I'm only going to tell you my story from the beginning. I came back last night intending to do it. Yes, I'm old Doc Redfern's son, of purple pills and bitters fame. Oh, don't I know it? Wasn't it rubbed into me for years?" Barney laughed bitterly and strode up and down the room a few times. Uncle Benjamin, tiptoeing through the hall, heard the laugh and frowned. Surely Doss wasn't going to be a stubborn little fool. Barney threw himself into a chair before Valency. "Yes, as long as I can remember, I've been a millionaire's son. But when I was born, Dad wasn't a millionaire. He wasn't even a doctor. Isn't yet. He was a veterinary and a failure at it. He and Mother lived in a little village up in Quebec and were abominably poor. I don't remember Mother. Haven't even a picture of her. She died when I was 2 years old. She was 15 years younger than Father, a little school teacher. When she died, Dad moved into Montreal and formed a company to sell his hair tonic. He dreamed the prescription one night, it seems. Well, it caught on. Money began to flow in. Dad invented, or dreamed, the other things too. Pills, bitters, liniment, and so on. He was a millionaire by the time I was 10. With a house so big, a small chap like myself always felt lost in it. I had every toy a boy could wish for, and I was the loneliest little devil in the world. I remember only one happy day in my childhood, Valency. Only one. Even you were better off than that. Dad had gone out to see an old friend in the country and took me along. I was turned loose in the barnyard, and I spent the whole day hammering nails in a block of wood. I had a glorious day. When I had to go back to my room full of playthings in the big house in Montreal, I cried, but I didn't tell Dad why. I never told him anything. It's always been a hard thing for me to tell things, Valency. Anything that went deep, and most things went deep with me. I was a sensitive child, and I was even more sensitive as a boy. No one ever knew what I suffered. Dad never dreamed of it.
When he sent me to a private school, I was only 11, the boys ducked me in the swimming tank until I stood on a table and read aloud all the advertisements of Father's patent abominations. I did it, then. Barney clenched his fists. I was frightened and half drowned, and all my world was against me. But when I went to college and the Sophs tried the same stunt, I didn't do it. Barney smiled grimly. They couldn't make me do it, but they could, and did, make my life miserable. I never heard the last of the pills and the bitters and the hair tonic. After using was my nickname. You see, I'd always such a thick thatch. My 4 college years were a nightmare. You know, or you don't know, what merciless beasts boys can be when they get a victim like me. I had few friends. There was always some barrier between me and the kind of people I cared for, and the other kind, who would have been very willing to be intimate with rich old Doc. Redfern's son, I didn't care for, but I had one friend, or thought I had, a clever, bookish chap, a bit of a writer. That was a bond between us. I had some secret aspirations along that line. He was older than I was. I looked up to him and worshipped him. For a year, I was happier than I'd ever been. Then, a burlesque sketch came out in the college magazine, a mordant thing, ridiculing Dad's remedies. The names were changed, of course, but everybody knew what and who was meant. Oh, it was clever, damnably so, and witty. McGill rocked with laughter over it. I found out he had written it. Oh, were you sure? Valency's dull eyes flamed with indignation. Yes. He admitted it when I asked him. Said a good idea was worth more to him than a friend, any time, and he added a gratuitous thrust. You know, Redfern, there are some things money won't buy. For instance, it won't buy you a grandfather. Well, it was a nasty slam. I was young enough to feel cut up, and it destroyed a lot of my ideals and illusions, which was the worst thing about it. I was a young misanthrope after that. Didn't want to be friends with anyone. And then, the year after I left college, I met Ethel Traverse. Valency shivered. Barney, his hands stuck in his pockets, was regarding the floor moodily and didn't notice it. Dad told you about her, I suppose. She was very beautiful. And I loved her. Oh yes, I loved her. I won't deny it or belittle it now. It was a lonely, romantic boy's first passionate love, and it was very real, and I thought she loved me. I was fool enough to think that. I was wildly happy when she promised to marry me for a few months. Then I found out she didn't. I was an involuntary eavesdropper on a certain occasion for a moment. That moment was enough. The proverbial fate of the eavesdropper overtook me. A girlfriend of hers was asking her how she could stomach Doc Redfern's son and the patent medicine background.
His money will gild the pills and sweeten the bitters, said Ethel with a laugh. Mother told me to catch him if I could. We're on the rocks, but pah, I smell turpentine whenever he comes near me. Oh, Barney, cried Valency, wrung with pity for him. She had forgotten all about herself and was filled with compassion for Barney and rage against Ethel Travers. How dared she? Well, Barney got up and began pacing round the room. That finished me, completely. I left civilization and those accursed dopes behind me and went to the Yukon. For 5 years I knocked about the world, in all sorts of outlandish places. I earned enough to live on. I wouldn't touch a cent of Dad's money. Then one day I woke up to the fact that I'd no longer cared a hang about Ethel, one way or another. She was somebody I'd known in another world, that was all. But I had no hankering to go back to the old life. None of that for me. I was free, and I meant to keep so. I came to Mistowus, saw Tom McMurray's Island. My first book had been published the year before and made a hit. I had a bit of money for my royalties. I bought my island, but I kept away from people. I had no faith in anybody. I didn't believe there was such a thing as real friendship or true love in the world. Not for me, anyhow, the son of purple pills. I used to revel in all the wild yarns they told of me. In fact, I'm afraid I suggested a few of them myself, by mysterious remarks which people interpreted in the light of their own prepossessions. Then you came. I had to believe you loved me, really loved me, not my father's millions. There was no other reason why you should want to marry a penniless devil with my supposed record. And I was sorry for you. Oh yes, I don't deny I married you because I was sorry for you.
And then I found you the best and jolliest and dearest little pal and chum a fellow ever had. Witty, loyal, sweet. You made me believe again in the reality of friendship and love. The world seemed good again just because you were in it, honey. I'd have been willing to go on forever just as we were. I knew that the night I came home and saw my home light shining out from the Everlight for the first time, and knew you were there waiting for me. After being homeless all my life, it was beautiful to have a home. To come home hungry at night and know there was a good supper and a cheery fire and you.
But I didn't realize what you actually meant to me till that moment at the switch. Then it came like a lightning flash. I knew I couldn't live without you, that if I couldn't pull you loose in time, I'd have to die with you. I admit it bowled me over, knocked me silly. I couldn't get my bearings for a while. That's why I acted like a mule. But the thought that drove me to the tall timber was the awful one that you were going to die. I'd always hated the thought of it, but I suppose there wasn't any chance for you, so I put it out of my mind. Now I had to face it. You were under sentence of death, and I couldn't live without you. When I came home last night, I had made up my mind that I'd take you to all the specialists in the world, that something surely could be done for you. I felt sure you couldn't be as bad as Dr. Trent thought, when those moments on the track hadn't even hurt you. And I found your note and went mad with happiness and a little terror for fear you didn't care much for me after all and had gone away to get rid of me. But now it's all right, isn't it, darling? Was she Valency, being called darling? I can't believe you care for me, she said helplessly. I know you can't. What's the use, Barney? Of course you're sorry for me. Of course you want to do the best you can to straighten out the mess. But it can't be straightened out that way. You couldn't love me. Me. She stood up and pointed tragically to the mirror over the mantel. Certainly, not even Alan Tierney could have seen beauty in the woeful, haggard little face reflected there. Barney didn't look at the mirror. He looked at Valency as if he would like to snatch her or beat her. Love you? Girl, you in the very core of my heart. I hold you there like a jewel. Didn't I promise you I'd never tell you a lie? Love you? I love you with all there is of me to love. Heart, soul, brain. Every fiber of body and spirit thrilling to the sweetness of you. There's nobody in the world for me but you, Valency. You're a good actor, Barney, said Valency with a wan little smile. Barney looked at her. So you don't believe me yet? I can't. Oh, damn, said Barney violently. Valency looked up startled. She had never seen this Barney. Scowling, eyes black with anger, sneering lips, dead white face. You don't want to believe it, said Barney in the silk-smooth voice of ultimate rage. You're tired of me. You want to get out of it, free from me. You're ashamed of the pills and the liniment, just as she was. Your sterling pride can't stomach them. It was all right as long as you thought you hadn't long to live. A good lark. You could put up with me. But a lifetime with old Doc Redfern's son is a different thing. Oh, I understand. Perfectly. I've been very dense, but I understand, at last. Valency stood up. She stared into his furious face. Then she suddenly laughed.
You darling, she said. You do mean it. You do really love me. You wouldn't be so enraged if you didn't.
Barney stared at her for a moment. Then he caught her in his arms with the little low laugh of the triumphant lover. Uncle Benjamin, who had been frozen with horror at the keyhole, suddenly thawed out and tiptoed back to Mrs. Frederick and Cousin Stickles. Everything is all right, he announced jubilantly. Dear little Doss. He would send for his lawyer right away and alter his will again. Doss should be his sole heiress. To her that had should certainly be given. Mrs. Frederick, returning to her comfortable belief in an overruling providence, got out the family Bible and made an entry under marriages. Chapter 43. But Barney, protested Valency after a few minutes, your father somehow gave me to understand that you still loved her. He would. Dad holds the championship for making blunders. If there's a thing that's better left unsaid, you can trust him to say it. But he isn't a bad old soul, Valency. You'll like him. I do, now. And his money isn't tainted money. He made it honestly. His medicines are quite harmless. Even his purple pills do people whole heaps of good when they believe in them. But I'm not fit for your life, sighed Valency. I'm not clever or well-educated or... My life is in Mistawis and all the wild places of the world. I'm not going to ask you to live the life of a society woman. Of course, we must spend a bit of the time with Dad. He's lonely and old.
But not in that big house of his, pleaded Valancy. I can't live in a palace. Can't come down to that after your blue castle, grinned Barney. Don't worry, sweet. I couldn't live in that house myself. It has a white marble stairway with gilt banisters and looks like a furniture shop with the labels off. Likewise, it's the pride of Dad's heart. We'll get a little house somewhere outside of Montreal, in the real country, near enough to see Dad often. I think we'll build one for ourselves. A house you build for yourself is so much nicer than a hand-me-down. But we'll spend our summers in Mistawis and our autumns traveling. I want you to see the Alhambra. It's the nearest thing to the blue castle of your dreams I can think of. And there's an old-world garden in Italy where I want to show you the moon rising over Rome through the dark cypress trees. Will that be any lovelier than the moon rising over Mistawis?
Not lovelier, but a different kind of loveliness. There are so many kinds of loveliness. Valancy, before this year you've spent all your life in ugliness. You know nothing of the beauty of the world. We'll climb mountains, hunt for treasures in the bazaars of Samarkand, search out the magic of East and West, run hand in hand to the rim of the world. I want to show you it all, see it again through your eyes. Girl, there are a million things I want to show you, do with you, say to you. It will take a lifetime, and we must see about that picture by Tierney after all. Will you promise me one thing? Asked Valancy solemnly. Anything, said Barney recklessly. Only one thing. You are never, under any circumstances or under any provocation, to cast it up to me that I asked you to marry me. Chapter 44. Extract from letter written by Miss Olive Sterling to Mr. Cecil Bruce. It's really disgusting that Doss's crazy adventures should have turned out like this. It makes one feel that there is no use in behaving properly. I'm sure her mind was unbalanced when she left home. What she said about a dust pile showed that. Of course, I don't think there was ever a thing the matter with her heart, or perhaps Snaith or Redfern or whatever his name really is fed purple pills to her back in that Mistawis hut and cured her. It would make quite a testimonial for the family ads, wouldn't it? He's such an insignificant-looking creature. I mentioned this to Doss, but all she said was, I don't like collar-ad men. Well, he's certainly no collar-ad man, though I must say there is something rather distinguished about him now that he has cut his hair and put on decent clothes. I really think, Cecil, you should exercise more. It doesn't do to get too fleshy. He also claims, I believe, to be John Foster. We can believe that or not, as we like, I suppose. Old Doc Redfern has given them $2 million for a wedding present. Evidently, the purple pills bring in the bacon. They're going to spend the fall in Italy and the winter in Egypt, and motor through Normandy in apple blossom time. Not in that dreadful old Lizzie, though. Redfern has got a wonderful new car. Well, I think I'll run away too and disgrace myself. It seems to pay. Uncle Ben is a scream, likewise Uncle James. The fuss they all make over Doss now is absolutely sickening. To hear Aunt Amelia talking of my son-in-law, Bernard Redfern, and my daughter, Mrs. Bernard Redfern. Mother and father as bad as the rest, and they can't see that Valancy is just laughing at them all in her sleeve. Chapter 45. Valancy and Barney turned under the mainland pines in the cool dusk of the September night for a farewell look at the blue castle.
Mistawis was drowned in sunset lilac light, incredibly delicate and elusive. Nip and Tuck were cawing lazily in the old pines. Good Luck and Banjo were mewed and mewing in separate baskets in Barney's new dark green car en route to Cousin Georgiana's. Cousin Georgiana was going to take care of them until Barney and Valancy came back. And Wellington and Cousin Sarah and Aunt Alberta had also entreated the privilege of looking after them, but to Cousin Georgiana was it given. Valancy was in tears. Don't cry, Moonlight. We'll be back next summer, and now we're off for a real honeymoon. Valancy smiled through her tears. She was so happy that her happiness terrified her. But despite the delights before her, the glory that was Greece and the grandeur that was Rome, lure of the ageless Nile, glamour of the Riviera, mosque and palace and minaret, she knew perfectly well that no spot or place or home in the world could ever possess the sorcery of her blue castle.